The Lincoln Spring Sales event is on now, and there's never been a better time to experience the feeling of driving a Lincoln. Pictures, sunlight through the available panoramic vista roof, music, weather, and maps on the 48-inch panoramic display, and a drive so smooth that inspiration rides up front. Stepping out better than you got in. That's the Lincoln feeling. Get behind the wheel of the 2026 Lincoln Nautilus SUV and discover exceptional offers only at your local Lincoln retailer.
The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So, one of the things General Keane mentioned is the Marine Expeditionary Forces heading towards the Persian Gulf. I'm sure they have many missions. One of them is going to be to clear up the Strait of Hormuz and reopen the thing in the next few weeks. That's bound to help the stock market and ease up on these oil prices, which really don't reflect supply and demand in the markets, in the world markets. But anyway, we'll let that go. And the question is, Jay Powell wants to be chairman of the Federal Reserve for life. He's going to barricade himself in one of the bathrooms so they can't take him out. It's not good. When he said that, the stock market fell 300-plus points. And then the question is, what's the economy really doing here? Everybody's so focused on the war and the oil price story, but the duration is likely to be relatively short. So let's talk to our two distinguished guests. John Carney is the Breitbart news editor for economics and finance and co-author of the fabulous daily Breitbart Business Digest. And E.J. Antoni, economist and senior fellow at Unleash Prosperity, chief economist at the Heritage Foundation, and distinguished author of many columns. Gentlemen, welcome. Let's see. Let me start with John Carney, who has probably done more legal work on the Federal Reserve in the last few months than any living person, probably any dead person, too. So, John, I don't want to obsess about it. I mean, we obsessed about it enough on the TV show, but and EJ was a part of that yesterday. But basically, the point is here that Jay Powell cannot appoint himself chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, whatever he calls himself, chairman pro tem. But the point that you made last night in the show, was very important. Your hypothesis is that when he made those statements at the press conference Wednesday, he did not check in with his fellow governors on the board. He did not check in with them. And you know what? The more I think about that, the more important that becomes.
That's right, Larry. He did not check. You can tell just by his wording. If he had the confidence, if he had told the board to ask about this, he would have said, the board believes that I will be the chairman pro tem. He didn't say that. He instead said, in keeping with law and past practice, I will be. By the way, he's totally wrong about the law and the past practice. He seems to think, and I don't know where he's getting this advice because it's very bad. I do not believe he even has spoken to the general counsel of the Federal Reserve, because they would have told him that there is absolutely nothing in the law that says that when there is another person who has been nominated to succeed you as the chairman of the Federal Reserve, that you get to just stay there until – I mean, this could go on for years, by the way, Larry, because we don't know if the Justice Department is going to drop the investigation. So Powell is saying he gets to stay there past his term. May 15th is when it ends, until the Senate decides to confirm the next guy. That's not how it works. At the very least, he would need a board vote, but that's also really not how it works. Legally, what will happen is that Donald Trump will get to select one of the sitting governors to be the temporary chairman while they wait for Warsh to get confirmed, if it comes to that. That means he'll probably pick Mickey Bowman, Christopher Waller, Or if he really wants to mess with them, he can pick Stephen Myron, who's brand new. I do think he'll pick one of the people who's been on the board for longer, probably Bowman or Waller, who are, been there for a while. But look, if you wanted to get Tom Tillis to get off this obsession where he thinks he can control the Justice Department also, appoint Myron. That'll get things moving. Stephen Myron's a very, very smart guy, but I think it would, show people they don't have the power they think they do. The Senate doesn't have to confirm the temporary thing. This is a replacement for the Senate not confirming someone. So Trump just gets to name one of the people on the board.
There's so many combinations. I was just thinking, so if Myron could step down and Warsh could step in, but Tillis might not buy into that.
That's right. Tillis might say, because Warsh has to be confirmed to the board if he's going to be chairman. So and maybe they could do something like split the difference. Say, look, don't confirm him as chairman yet, but confirm him to the board. But then Trump would get to appoint him as chairman pro temp. But Myron is sitting in the seat right now that Warsh is up for. So Myron actually would make a natural appointee because it's the seat that will become the chairman's seat. And then you have this other outrageous thing where Powell is saying he still won't even tell us if he'll step down from the board after Warsh is confirmed.
Right.
He says, I might just stick around. That's also unprecedented. Nobody has done that since 1946. It's scandalous. If he keeps saying these lawless and unprecedented things that break with convention, I think actually Donald Trump should seriously think about removing him. I know that would cause a lot of outrage, but he can't remove him as governor except for cause, but as chairman, and this is something a lot of people don't realize, there's no for-cause protection for the chairman.
Right.
The president can remove the chair.
That's so important.
Chair.
That's so important. You know that? Trump could just step in and fire him. And for cause. Cause here is, bad behavior, illegal behavior, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that's exactly right. I saw besides your thing, somebody else wrote this. A legal beagle lawyer.
Yes, so Adrian Vermeule has written it. He's a Harvard professor.
Yeah, that's the one, I think.
He did a lot of work on this. Peter Conti Brown, who's another distinguished scholar of Fed history, he has said there is no protection built into the law for the chairman as chairman. They have protection as governor, but the way the law works is the chairman is protected more by collegiality, convention, but not by the law. Trump can remove Powell as chairman.
Let me get EJ in here. EJ, so the Fed, the decision the Fed made on monetary policy, apart from Jay Powell's foibles, you're down to perhaps 1 or 0 rate cuts this year. That seems to be the consensus thinking on the Fed. And that was a big surprise. That's one reason the market sold off before Powell made his remarks on his chairman pro tem. What do you think of that? And EJ, was the Fed right to do nothing on this meeting? Just kind of keep their powder dry.
Well, Larry, not only are fewer people pricing in rate cuts, but you're actually seeing some people price in one rate hike here, if you can believe that. And that's all based on this, this silly notion that higher oil prices are somehow going to cause inflation. And we talked about this on your TV show yesterday. The fact that just because some prices rise, in fact, even if a lot of prices rise, that's actually not the same thing as inflation from a monetary perspective. And the reason that's important, even though it may feel the same to the average American, it's important because it's not the same for the Fed. The Fed is going to try to use a monetary tool to deal with a non-monetary problem. And in doing so, it's going to make things worse. Look, this is the equivalent of if a person's got a stomach ache, if they have food poisoning, let's say, that the doctor's going to turn around and give them chemotherapy. That is not the right drug to treat this problem, and you will make the patient worse, not better. Just because oil and oil derivatives are getting more expensive is not a reason to make credit more expensive. That's silly. Again, it will not actually address the problem. It will make things worse. And when we had an oil embargo decades ago, the Fed actually did the exact same thing. They made that same policy mistake where they raised rates in the face of an already slowing economy, and it just made things even worse. And unfortunately, Powell has shown through his own behavior that he has a habit of making things worse, of repeating past policy mistakes, keeping rates way too low for way too long, giving us 40-year high inflation, and then raising rates so fast that it froze over the housing market, that it caused the interest on the national debt to double. Now, obviously, Biden and his cronies had a hand in all of those different mistakes as well. But the fact remains that so much of what has gone wrong in the American economy for the last 5 or 6 years could not have happened without Powell and all of his accompanying mistakes.
You know, I think we're going to take a break in a moment, and we'll come back. I think that that the threat of those mistakes that you described really reverberated through the stock market and continues to reverberate through the stock market. Stock market, you know, the Dow fell almost 1,000 points this week. You can blame it on high oil prices, and that's probably part of it. But, you know, profits and productivity are still pretty strong. The stock market doing pretty well. I'm just saying, I think a lot of investors listened to that press conference and just they got out of Dodge. I think that's a mistake. I mean, I wouldn't sell the market because Powell's going to be gone and the war is going to be gone sooner than people think. But in any case, I think that has affected the stock market. And there's no clarity in Fed policy. Let me think for what somebody overseas, was it Christine Lagarde? The ECB said she might have to raise rates. Some central banker said they might have to raise rates because of the oil price increase, which, as you point out, would be the wrong response. I mean, that's just would be the terribly wrong response. By the way, I was just kind of processing Mickey Bowman as Fed chair. All right, why do I think Mickey Bowman's going to be the next Fed chair? I don't know. She's a very smart woman. So let's get a read on the economy. We're talking to E.J. Antoni, Heritage Foundation, Unleash Prosperity. John Carney is the co-author of the Daily Breitbart Business Digest. We got 2 minutes each, fellas. John Carney, why don't you start? How is the economy?
The economy is actually doing pretty well. If you look at unemployment claims, there's hardly any. I mean, we are at, firing on all cylinders when it comes to employing the workforce that we have. I think last week we had 205,000 unemployment claims. That is functionally zero. Almost no one is losing their jobs. Employers can't get enough. Productivity is rising really quickly. That is a promising thing for the future of the economy. And then when you look at capital expenditures, we're still in a capital expenditure boom. This is Trump's economic policy directly feeding into a better economy. So we would be doing very well. The high oil price is a risk to growth, but if we get this resolved, that won't be a big problem.
EJ, profits still pretty strong from what I can gather.
Well, exactly, Larry. And, somebody once told me that profits are the mother's milk of equity prices. Yep. So that's good news there, right?
Yep.
And look, if we go sector by sector, manufacturing, there are a lot of indicators that that our nation's manufacturers are finally turning a corner after about a 3.5-year downturn. So that's good news there. But I just want to echo a point that John just articulated, which is energy prices. That is the big wild card. If we had this conversation 4 weeks ago, I would have said I am 100% bullish on 2026. I see no problems on the horizon. But of course, now the question is just how long are prices going to stay up? If like you were saying, the war is wrapped up literally in a few days and prices start coming back down and there's not a lot of damage to energy infrastructure in the Middle East, then I agree. We are right back on track. And I think that's just what markets are trying to price in right now. Nobody knows which way things are going to go. And so they don't know how much risk to really price in on both the energy side, but also the equity side, because obviously energy prices and equity prices should be negatively correlated.
Well, I wouldn't say a few days, but I would say a few weeks. Just based on the president's own statements. He's been very transparent, and he's getting his information from the Joint Chiefs and CENTCOM. And I think they're ahead of schedule. General Keane does, too. I can't predict the war. Look, if it's another month, you've got the one big beautiful bill of tax cuts and 100% depreciation and deregulation, just to name a few, which is boosting business. Both of you guys agree, I think. You have a capital goods boom, and there's factory construction and manufacturing's coming back. So I don't think this war is going to interrupt that. I could be wrong. I don't know. The first quarter, let's see, the Cleveland Fed GDP now, or Atlanta Fed GDP now is a little over 2%, but they don't know. They don't know anything about this either. I mean,
that Atlanta Fed number is probably an underestimation, because what they're not able to really put in there is the bounce back from the fourth quarter government shutdown.
Right.
And so that is actually, a lot of that is coming into the first quarter of this year. And so when I look at that number, I at least adjust it up by half a point to maybe a full point. That's exactly what was taken out of the first quarter, or the fourth quarter of last year. We should see most of that come back in the first quarter.
That's a good point. I just would say, fellas, the war is 3 weeks old. 3 weeks. And it's not like a government shutdown, because the whole economy is not shut down. I mean, the war's 3 weeks, and it may go another 3 weeks. But that's really small stuff. It's a small duration, I think.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return, but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.